Good day, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. Gunman kills 5 and injures 8 in Michigan Latter-day Saints Church, then sets fire. Boater fires into waterfront bar in North Carolina, killing 3, injuring 5. Midtown Manhattan shooter's medical examiner finds low-stage CTE in brain. Also, at the United Nations, Netanyahu calls recognition of Palestinians shameful, and delicants walk out. Governor Bill Lee says federal resources will begin arriving in Memphis next week, and so much more. America, mass shootings, it's not only an epidemic, it's a pandemic and a total atrocity.
Breaking news from Blanc, Michigan. At least 2 people are dead and 8 others are in the hospital after a shooting during a worship service at a Latter-day Saint church this morning. Kaylee Marintet is live at the scene. Kaylee, what's the latest from police?
Michael, we are here in Blanc Township, Michigan. That is about an hour northwest of Detroit. We are here because around 10:25 this morning, officers got a call that a man, 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford of Burton, which is just the town over, ran his truck into the front of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That call came in just before 10:30 this morning. We heard from a press conference at 5 o'clock with the Blanc Township chief that officers responded quickly and shot the suspect at 10:33. Again, the suspect has been identified as 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford. We are still trying to learn more information about this gunman. Right now, authorities are executing search warrants at the gunman's home and through phone records.
Now, as the report has stated, in Michigan, 50 miles north of Detroit, there was a man in a mass shooting on September 28th. He drove his vehicle into the Church Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Blanc, Michigan, and he opened fire on the, attending members at that church. Then he set the building ablaze. And also, we're going to find some other details about the shooter here. Again, I know that you guys was listening in, but just to kind of go over it once again, a 40-year-old man identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford, again, rammed his vehicle into the front doors of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is kind of right out of Grand Theft Auto. Some of the things that this shooter has done. He killed 2 people and he injured 8, according to the local law enforcement. And then there's been other reports of mass fatalities that this particular report does not have. So this is the guy who was a former U.S. Marine who served in Iraq. I haven't heard any stories that he may be suffering from shell shock or PTSD or any of the sort. This is some of the language that they use. Now, the shooter, Thomas Jacob Sanford, he's a war veteran and he died in a shootout with police. Now, they stated here at least 2 people were dead, but the current and verified report is at least 4 people are confirmed dead and 8 injured, and authorities are still combing the ruins for other victims. Investigators believe that the attack was premeditated and are treating it as a targeted violence. Now, you heard 2, you heard 4, but the actual report, according to this news story of Jacob Blake here, they said that at least 5 people, so they're still going through the rummaging some of the the layout of the fire, that at least 5 people were killed in the Sunday morning attack, including the gunman. So we still have an epidemic / pandemic of mass shootings in America. It seems as though that is in an uptick. I wonder what's going on in America, what's going on in the world to motivate, to create this new group of extremists that are just randomly attacking innocent people in public spaces. Because again, this is not the only story that we'll be covering here today, ladies and gentlemen, because we also had another mass shooting, and it says that the Boater bar shooting in North Carolina less than 24 hours before the Michigan atrocity. And this man opened fire from a boat into a waterfront bar in Southport, North Carolina, killing 3 and wounding 5. This particular suspect is named Nigel Max Edge. This is kind of right out of comic books, right out of, video games. And I hate to compare the two because we understand that video games is fictitious, it's for entertainment and fun, but some of these acts kind of writes his own script. He has been arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder, and the shootings have triggered debates about public safety in waterfront zones and gun access on vessels. Again, the thing I've been telling you guys for the past month or so, we would like to say that there's a mental issue in America, that we need to have people going to therapy. All of that is true. But the common denominator in all of these attacks is a gun. And I know, keep my hands off your guns. I am not talking about stricken or revoked or delete, anything dealing with the Second Amendment. But we need stronger and more restrictive gun laws in America. And I know there's going to be people in my comment section like, okay, you keep talking about this, you keep saying the same thing, because we keep having single gunmen that is, again, taking upon themselves whatever is going on inside their head. They want to just kill people. I'm a loss for words today, ladies and gentlemen, because week after week, we continue to have mass shootings and mass killings around in America. And some people are making this political. Some people are making this racial, and we should not conflate the two. Now, there is a difference between gang violence in Memphis, of black gangs in Memphis killing one another. That is isolated in one community, in one area, in one city. But when we're talking about mass shooters, for whatever reason they deem necessary, they're going to public spaces. People are going to the lake. You know, they went to this bar, they're sitting on the lake, and he's driving up like he's in Grand Theft Auto. And again, I'm not trying to put, some casting a negative shadow on the video game, but it kind of just reminds me of some of the things that I've seen in video games of how these two gunmen, these two mass killers have conducted, this mayhem, driving up on the boat and just shooting people randomly. Let's get into the story a little bit deeper here, ladies and gentlemen. This is chaotic. It states that a suspect has been arrested in a shooting that left 3 people dead and 8 others injured when a gunman on a boat opened fire with an assault rifle on a waterfront bar in the coastal North Carolina city of Southport, as city spokeswoman told. I want you guys to picture yourself. You can be a gun-toting advocate. You can be a member of the NRA. Does not matter. But I want you to picture yourself. You left your gun in your car. You left your gun at home. And you went to this coastal North Carolina restaurant. You and your wife, you and your girlfriend, you and your husband, you and your boyfriend, you was going to get a couple of drinks. You was going to get a nice meal to eat. And you're outside, you're enjoying the cool weather as we're moving into the fall and then to the winter. And someone rides up on a boat with they say with a high-powered rifle, automatic rifle, and then assault rifle rather, and start to just spray indiscriminately into these group of people who is enjoying a very peaceful evening. And then we would like to say it's not the guns, it's the people. I always would tell you this, it's always both. Because in order for the people to inflict mass casualties and mass killings, they're using guns. When you go to England, people just have knives, right? You got a couple of smart people who may put together a bomb, because they also stated in the Michigan mass shooting that he shot a couple of people and then he got out and set the church afire with some sort of explosive device. Now, I didn't really get into the details of that, okay, because I didn't want to take anything out of context, but there was reports that he actually had some sort of device that he deployed in order to burn up this building. Now, let me see right here. He was blowing it up on your screens. He was an organizational automotive mechanic and vehicle recovery operator, reaching the rank of sergeant, and was deployed in Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2007 to 2008. Okay, I was over there during that time as well. Sanford earned several awards, including the Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal. Likewise, his last assignment was the 2nd Maintenance Battalion at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Then it states that the suspected explosive device, Sanford used an accelerant believed to be gasoline to start the fire of the Detroit Field Division of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco. This is also known as the ATF. Some suspected explosive devices were found, but it's not clear whether they were used to initiate the blaze. Now, depending on what unit you are in the military and or the Army and Marines, you do have some knowledge of putting together very simple devices that may have a chain effect. And he used, again, gasoline as the accelerant to set off this supposedly as they stated, the reports are not out of this explosive device. We have one of these courses in the military called FFE, Field Fire Expedient. And you can learn how to use det cord and C4 in order to set off chain reactions in conjunction with a fog ore, so you can burn up, a field of shrubs or branches or leaves. It's used to really clear ground, so you can do air assault missions where helicopters come in, drop off supplies, drop off troops. So I don't know what particular class that he taken, but it seems though he's probably had a low grade class of how to put together some very simple but deadly explosive device. It could have been very rudimentary, but nonetheless, he has some form of training, especially been in the Marine Corps and as well as in the military. So again, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't matter if these people are former military or not. People are taking upon themselves to inflict indiscriminately mass harm on the public. But we don't have a gun problem in America. We have people with mental issues in America, right? But I can tell you this, we have more restricted gun laws. We looked into people's history. We look at people online history. People are getting murdered. People are getting killed. And it doesn't matter what race, what religion. Some of these, of course, are religious attack. Like he deliberately went to the LDS Church to inflict massive amount of harm. But someone driving up on a boat at this particular restaurant, I don't know if he was a former employee there. He had some dealings with some people there, or did he just lose his mind, or he just wanted to make a point? Nobody knows. And there's so many different reasons why these people do things, but the common denominator, ladies and gentlemen, I know you don't like me saying this, is the gun. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this particular story, but Benjamin Netanyahu at the UN, again, the Israeli prime minister, lashed out at countries recognizing Palestine, calling it shameful. He's stating that these countries who recognize Palestine are shameful. So over 110 countries has recognized Palestine as a state, as a country, as a nation. Now you have Palestinian people, you have Palestinian land, you have a Palestinian flag, you have some form of a Palestinian government. Again, they're not unified with Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, which they need to be. But the UN is trying to, again, a lot of the UN delegates are trying to put this together to, again, make them official, even though they have recognized them as a state, but again, to put together that government. But Benjamin Netanyahu got on the world stage and he said how shameful it is that you guys are recognized these people as a statehood, these people as a country, these people as a nation. He called it shameful. And so some delegates from nations walked out in protest. And the confrontation underscores deep diplomatic rift between Israel, the US, and European states supporting Palestinian statehood. This is nothing new, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the reasons why the world hasn't pushed back strongly against Israel and the alleged genocide that has been confirmed by the UN as a genocide of a group of people, the way that Benjamin Netanyahu, the IDF, have come in and occupied Gaza altogether. Do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, some of the things that have been going on in Palestine. All the reports that we've had of kids in starvation and how this has been a targeted attack of dividing, which was once a peaceful area in the Middle East, Palestine in 1947, and now there's an occupied territory in the Middle East, and how Israel has divided Palestine altogether. But no less, do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, this is by the way of the UN partition plan of 1947, 1948. So the UN and all these other European nations got together and stated that, okay, Jews are being persecuted in Europe. So we're going to look in the Middle East, where we see some Middle Eastern countries really don't have defenses. Middle Eastern countries really don't have a really robust, complex government and security forces. They don't have these things in place. So you know what we're going to do? Let's take, for instance, Palestine. We don't recognize them as a state, or as a statehood rather, and we're going to carve out land for Jews in Europe to go and settle. Now, supposedly there are not just white Ashkenazi Jews in Israel, but there's also Middle Eastern Jews that are in Israel as well. There's also Black Jews in Israel, I think by the way of Somalia and or Ethiopia. But again, we've heard racist things that occur to those people there. So again, this was actually divided because of the white European Jews settling in what we now know as the state of Israel. So there's been a lot going on. And I just don't want you guys to forget how Hamas possibly came about. Again, this was about faith. And then you turn people who were faithful in a particular religion to become jihadists and become terrorist groups, as we would like to name them. But once again, the state of Palestine is under crisis. The UN, I wonder if they're going to correct some of the things that they went about this very wrongly. I wonder if they're going to do this. I wonder how much of the world support Palestine being a state, Palestine being a nation, and how will the world support this? That is what I want to know. Okay. Now, I don't know if you guys are also familiar that Tennessee Governor Bill Lee announced that federal resources likely to disaster relief on urban development, that they will begin arriving in Memphis by next week. We're talking about those federal troops. And this comes after recent regional protests, infrastructure strain, and pressure for more federal support. You know what's interesting about this? I want you guys to listen in on this public speaker right here, civil rights leader right here. And you may not like what I have to say after you hearing him speak.
Official in Memphis and Shelby County who want to ride with them, we say no. No. We say no. No. We say no. No.
We do not need troops and fatigues with armed guns and tanks. What we need is our police officers to be able to do their job. And so if you're actually thinking that this will solve crime, you don't understand what the root causes of crime are, and you don't understand the implications of what is happening here.
I have a lot of people in my district.
Now, I know this is going to be conflicting statements from me, but can two things be true at the same time? And a lot of you would like to say, absolutely. Does Memphis, Tennessee need more resources? Do they need police to be unshackled so they can go about doing their job? Absolutely. Should Memphis, Tennessee have deployed troops of the National Guard in the city? Yes, I do agree with that as well. Only for a temporary time, because if they do need federal support, if they need more state funding to empower or give more resources to the local police officers, change some laws to unshackle the police officers, keep criminals in jail cells, in prisons, then all that needs to be done immediately. Because Memphis, Tennessee, ladies and gentlemen, I showed you the reports roughly about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I could probably pop those reports up. I can pop those reports up very quickly here, but they are leading in crime in almost everything. And look what pops up very quickly here, ladies and gentlemen. It states here, crime reports top cities 2025. The most dangerous cities in the U.S. include Memphis, Detroit, and Baltimore, which lead in violent crimes, while cities like Oakland, St. Louis, and Philadelphia face challenges with high rates of poverty. Now, it goes on to state that Memphis, Tennessee often tops lists for violent crime with high rates of aggravated assault and homicide. Okay, and homicide. So again, I didn't try to word it. I did a very generic search, and it states very clearly that Memphis, Tennessee, and I also gave a very detailed report of all the particular crimes. They're leading in homicides, they're leading in robberies, they're leading in arson, they lead in aggravated assaults. They're almost leading in every crime in America in Memphis, Tennessee. So yes, police officers need the shackles to be removed so they can do their jobs. Yes, Memphis, Tennessee does need more resources and support from the federal government when it comes to monetary funding. Yes, do I believe that the National Guard should be deployed there temporarily? Absolutely. How else are they going to do their jobs and increase the police force if you don't have certain barriers in place to at least decrease and minimize the crime as police officers are getting more support, as laws and legislations are being changed? I know that it's probably my unpopular, rhetoric that I'm stating, and some of you guys may be against that. But again, I'm just saying temporarily. Now, the Pentagon also called up 200 National Guard troops at the Trump Portland announcement, and they stated that there was already roughly 100 ICE agents walking around downtown Portland anyway. So do I believe that Portland needs 200 National Guard troops? No. I lived in Washington State for 8 years. I also been to Portland many times because it's only like 2 hours away. Going down into Portland, they don't need it. I mean, granted, they were talking about protecting federal buildings, ICE buildings. Now, this is political theater, in my opinion. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a very large problem in America. And I do not want to give you guys, I do not want to forget to give you guys the update on the mass shooter who was a black male, which is actually really rare in America when it's outside of gang violence, when it comes to mass killings, mass shootings. Midtown Manhattan mass shooting, gunman had low stage CTE. So again, this is one of those very indiscriminate crimes where you walk inside of a building and you just start to shoot up the place, in which he did. So I'll kind of give you an update on that as well. But I want you guys to listen in on this report.
It's nearly 2 months after the deadly shooting at a Midtown Manhattan office building. The shooter had a traumatic brain injury, low stage CTE, and health reporter Jenna DeAngelis breaks down the medical examiner's findings.
On July 28th, Shane Tamora walked into this Park Avenue office building with a rifle in his hand. He then shot and killed 4 innocent people before taking his own life. The 27-year-old former high school football player left behind handwritten notes which read, "Study my brain," and "Football gave me CTE."
CTE is a brain disease that has been associated with exposure to repetitive head impacts, and it can be diagnosed only in brain tissue after death.
In Tamora, the New York City Office of Chief Medical Examiner found unambiguous diagnostic evidence of low-stage CTE. Dr. Kristen Dems-O'Connor is director of the Brain Injury Research Center at Mount Sinai.
Is CTE linked with violent behavior?
There are people who have been diagnosed with CTE who have engaged in violent acts. It is not accurate, I don't think, to say that CTE causes violence.
Though he never played in the NFL, investigators believe Tamora was targeting its offices inside the building. In response to the findings, the NFL wrote in part, "We continue to grieve the senseless loss of lives. There is no justification for the horrific acts that took place." As the medical examiner notes, the science around this condition continues to evolve, and the physical and mental manifestations of CTE remain under study.
Unfortunately, this young man had CTE. So given the reports and some of the information that's given surrounding CTE, it's unclear if CTE caused these very violent outbreaks where people are taking upon themselves to, again, unalive people indiscriminately. But again, he stated that he had CTE. He said, "Study my brain after my death." And they did, and they found low stage CTE. I wonder if there's any tests or something or studies or research they can come up with where football players, people who may have had, brain injuries or concussions, if there's some sort of preliminary study or test or exam that they can take that could be precursors to test if people have CTE and keep them under some sort of monitoring, where if they have some online or anything to save innocent people from getting killed. Now, again, this story is very different from this story that this man inflicted mass damage on, right? Supposedly, we don't know if he had PTSD or not of any course or any stage. We don't know if that's the case. In this shooting as well with this gentleman right here, we don't know if he had PTSD, former military. Some of these reports we just don't know, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is not the former Marine. Okay, this is not the former Marine. They don't have any information on this particular suspect. Let me blow this up for you guys. This gentleman here, okay, is a 40-year-old former Marine. Okay, and he actually was killed by the police in the shootout. Okay, he's also an Iraqi veteran. So I wonder if they had any history of him going to therapy that's surrounding PTSD or anything like that. And just the same as CTE, not all people who have PTSD relates to them inflicting violence on innocent people or taking upon themselves to commit suicide. Okay, all PTSD again, there's some similarities, there's some symptoms that are common, but it's all different. Just as well as CTE, PTSD, there are similarities and some common symptoms, but a lot of it is actually different. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, no good news this morning. I just hope that as a country, we have this great divide, and it's based upon extremism and ideologies and ideation and people who are being, as they're stating, radicalized from the left, radicalized from the right. But the only consistent thing that we're seeing is that innocent people, no matter what demographic, what religion, what race you're following, are being killed. I wonder if our government is going to continue on with the same old plan, or they're really going to do something about it. Let's stop making this a liberal Democratic issue. Let's stop making this a Republican conservative issue, and let's stop making this an American issue.